welcome to Mary Elizabeth Jones's Variety Hour.
Hello, hello, hello. I'm Kay Lazar. I'm the announcer for this show. And I don't think we announced it the last time we did a show. It was 75, number 75. I didn't know it was the 75th show. So we've had 75 hours of just you and me talking. And your hair looks very nice today. I think you were having a poor hair day. I can't tell. You might. I think every day is a good hair day. My day, I still have it, so that's a good hair day. But you were wearing a Bass Pro Shop hat. I remember cap.
Last time, yeah.
Yes. Do you like to go fishing and hunting and everything?
I like to do a little bit of fishing, so.
Okay.
But not hunting.
Not hunting.
Yeah.
Now, so I've been hunting before, and I'm not a hunter. I've just been with friends. I've been with friends in high school and college hunting. That was probably the last time I did it, and it was more of a party situation.
Yeah.
I've been fishing, a lot of beer drinking, and that's about that's all I really got out of it. I didn't really want to kill anything, and I don't think I did, which is good.
Yeah.
I'm not one for skinning a deer or anything.
Yeah.
Funny how the same people who would have no problem shooting a deer don't want to hit one don't want to hit one with their car. Now, so tell me about your fishing.
I haven't been since I was a kid, so.
Yeah.
But my dad had a friend. My dad has a friend who has property on the river.
Okay.
So I've been over to his place to fish.
Okay. So you went to his place to fish.
Yes.
Okay. So he had his own pond.
Yeah, his own river.
Yeah, I've been fishing with usually with groups. I never went fishing by myself. I had a friend that I used to go fishing with when I was a kid, and we had a lot of fun. It wasn't a rod and reel. We just had a stick, a bamboo stick,
Yeah.
and some wire, and a hook and worms, and we caught fish. But only once do I ever remember eating fish. Back in my day, you just caught them and they just died. All right.
Yeah.
So then there was this whole thing about catching them and releasing them, which is probably better. The comedian Larry Miller has a joke about how when the fish go back to the pond, they tell all the other fish, "Hey, you think you have it rough? I was once out of the water into the boat, and then thrown right back in. I didn't know what was going." So anyway, I had sort of a bad. I for some reason fish always intrigued me because they're the only animals that spend their time in water and never go on land. And if they go on land or go even out of the water, they suffocate.
Yeah.
They breathe better in the water than they breathe outside the water.
Yeah.
And I still don't know how aquariums work or any of that. I don't know. I see little videos of octopus families, and I see the seahorses, and a lot of that is pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
The seahorses, actually, the male gives birth. I don't know how that works, but it does. And the fish, so we would catch the fish, all right, and then what would happen is, then I go to Ireland and I go fishing with the people. There are two types of people in Ireland: fishermen and golfers. And usually the others hate the other. One group hates the other. So I tried to see which I was, a fisherman or a golfer. I think I like the golfing better, because at least the golf I was doing something. Fishing, you're just hanging around in a boat, waiting, drinking beer.
Uh-huh.
You do that at golfing, but at least you feel like you're doing some exercise.
Yeah.
So I go fishing, and at this point, I think in America, catch and release is now the way. If you're not going to eat the fish, don't throw them back. All right, if they're too small, throw them back. So we caught this stuff called carp. I guess they have that in America. It's this really mean-looking fish with teeth that I think they put into the American river system to kill other fish, but wound up they became a pest themselves. Carp. So I think that's what they're called. So that's all we caught were carp, and they're not that easy to eat. So we didn't. So I said, "Are we going to throw them back?" And by the time I said it out of my mouth, I saw them just throwing them in a bucket and a paper bucket onto the side of the pond and said, "We're not going to eat those things."
Yeah.
I guess they felt they were a pest and it was best to just catch them and kill them. But which is kind of cruel. But so I had a pretty good time fishing, but now I have no interest in fishing.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I talk to people fishing. They have fancy reels and flies and everything. I once went fishing when I was in my, I must have been 10 years old, and I caught a really good fish. It was in a pond with some men. My dad said, "Why don't you hang out with these men? They're fishermen." And my dad's a city boy. He had no interest in fishing. So he said, go, and so they gave me a rod and they showed me how to cast it and everything and to go fishing. And I caught something. No, everyone was catching stuff. I was the only one who didn't catch. Just a little boy, really. And then I caught one, the biggest one of the group, and we ate that one. My mom filleted it, and that was the only time I think I've ever eaten fish that I caught.
Yeah.
Tasted good. Anyway, I mean, it tasted good because I caught it.
Yeah.
The other thing was, I once saw a fisherman caught a lot of fish and he was gutting it and all. And for some reason, I got the idea that fish didn't have blood; they had just guts. They had fish guts. But this guy had all, and he was just bloody on his hands. He looked like Sweeney Todd. He had so much blood on his hands. So I said, "Oh man," and that kind of turned me off fishing for a while. The second time the men came around, they didn't have a reel for me, so they let me sit around and watch them fish. And if you think fishing is boring, where do you watch somebody fish? And that's what I did. It was probably the dullest. Probably was 2 hours, but it seemed like a whole day I was out there. And so that pretty much, all you need is one bad day fishing, and you never want to. Although some people say a bad day fishing is better than a good day at work.
Yeah.
That's what people say. But I felt sad that day because I didn't catch any fish. I wasn't allowed to catch fish because I didn't have any sort of stick or bait or anything. I don't even think those guys wanted me around. They didn't want me around a second time. So, I almost felt I was like 10 years old, and it was one of the last times I felt like crying. I don't really cry so much anymore. When I was a kid, I used to cry all the time. When you're a little kid, you're a crybaby.
Oh yeah.
But I don't cry so much. Do you cry ever?
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I used to see women cry all the time. But like your mom, but you don't see your dad cry so much. It's a big surprise if you actually see them cry. Or tear up or get emotional or anything. In the movies they do, but there's a movie with Jack Nicholson called About Schmidt. He just cries the whole movie.
Yeah.
And I don't think Jack is the type of guy who would cry, really. It's a good movie, though. And any movie with Jack Nicholson is a good movie. But anyway, so I was trying to think of stuff that made me cry. And, because I don't know why I don't cry anymore. Did it just, because when I was a kid, I thought, oh man, how am I going to ever be a man? Because I cry all the time. I mean, you're a crybaby.
Yeah.
You cry when you hurt your finger. You want your mama to kiss it, make it feel better. You cry when the first day in school, you run away. I don't want to be. First grade, first day of kindergarten. But I'm trying to think of stuff that make me cry. I gotta tell you, I have. So I'm surprised when people cry. Even to this day, I've had like female friends that cry, but I don't. Someone told me that when a vengeful ex-girlfriend and or a politician cry, don't take it too seriously because they're only crying for themselves. Crying, lachrymose. I don't even know what causes crying. I mean that those tears, those salty tears, they don't taste like regular water. You know, they, you know, you're crying. And a really difficult cry, your nose runs.
Yeah.
It's a real mess. It's like your whole face melts.
Yeah.
And I had some nieces and nephews, and just like all little kids, they cry a lot. So I remember one in particular. I used to go up to her and I said, and she was she was only like a year old or 2 years old, and I said to her, she would cry so much. She certainly cried when a man walked in the room, and I was a man, a big, hairy man walking around, even though I was her uncle. And she didn't know that. She just saw me as the villain. And I would walk in and I would say, now listen, if you start crying, I'm going to be very sad. And then she'd start crying. It's almost like you watch her and then all the tears start coming out. I'll tell you what really learned me about crying, which is really upsetting, was I got in trouble in first grade. I think I've told this story before, but it has to do with crying. I told about something else, about losing my religion or something. But the nun, the principal was a nun, and she brought me into and it was something I did. I laughed in church, which I shouldn't have been doing, according to her. And I laughed in church, and she just laid down the law to me. I'm 6 years old. And when I say I was 6 years old, I was probably emotionally a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
I was always younger than my years. When when I'm 80 years old, I'll get pimples. I'm so much. I'm so young for my age. So anyway, so I start crying. I start crying right in front of her, and I remember crying, as a kid, as a little kid, and she told me, "Stop that crying." I said, "What?" She said, "Stop that crying." She said, "That may work with your mom and dad, but it doesn't work for me." And like the tears almost back in my eyes, and then I realized she doesn't care about me. She doesn't care what I'm going through. She doesn't care anything. She doesn't know what it's like to be a 6-year-old. She's just some mean bully who I never saw again after the first year of first grade, first year of high school. I guess I guess she's dead by now. Good. But sometimes you do this with kids sometimes when they don't get their way, or sometimes do this with like a girlfriend or a boyfriend that starts crying. Check their eyes and check their cheeks. There are no tears coming. They go, you don't believe me. You don't understand me. You're such a mean person. And if the tears aren't coming down, unless they're very good actors, they're probably just putting on a show for you.
Yeah.
Sad story. Many years ago, the woman who put her kids in the car and put it in the car, and the car went into the beach. Susan Smith, you know her.
Yes.
And she was blaming and everyone felt sorry for her. It turned out she did it. But I noticed when she was crying, no tears were coming down. I mean, she was going through, what was me? But, this was before all the fingers were pointing to her. She was blaming it on immigrants and people who came through, and then maybe your ex-husband or something like that. As it turned out, she only did it to impress her new boyfriend. Killed her own kids. No tears come down. So always check people's eyes. see. I mean, check to see if they really are crying. You know, I mean, real tears. 'Cause at least if real tears are coming, they probably really feel bad. I once had trouble with somebody. It was probably the worst day of my life, and I started crying. I mean, I was an adult at the time, and I couldn't believe I was going through this terrible time with a particular woman. And what happened was, years later, she brought that up to me, and she thought the funniest part of the whole day was when I started crying. I thought, oh man, glad I didn't marry her. Except for deaths in the family, I don't really cry. I tell you what, I don't. I cry. What has made you cry?
My dad yelling at me,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, people yelling at you is a good reason to cry. I'm one of those guys, when people yell at me, I go into the next room and start crying.
yeah.
I don't want anyone to see me cry. Being an actor, I have to show emotion all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dad yelling at you, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get, when I get injured, like I fall down, I don't cry anymore. When I was a kid, I would cry all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know how I keep it together now. I guess that nun in first grade taught me straight.
Yeah.
I don't know how I keep it together. I had something happen to me yesterday. I felt like crying. I locked my keys in the car.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, if this would have happened in the day, I would have cried. But if I was a teenager. But now I just said, oh, keep a cool head. Let's get your spare key, and open the door and find your key, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. Tears of joy.
Yeah.
You know, when people win on a game show, or when people win the lottery, I'm sure they cry. You know, I don't cry when things are sad anymore. You know.
Yeah.
A lot of people in my life have died, and what really makes me upset and sad are when it's children.
Yeah.
And when it's adults, like old people in their 80s or something, that's upsetting, and but for some reason it doesn't hit me like it would a kid. Even though a kid is just getting started while an adult's already lived their life.
Yeah.
Has already lived a life, and thus you would grieve more for them than you would for a child. Well, a child is 3 years old.
Yeah.
But it actually is worse. For some reason, it just hits you home. You know.
Yeah.
We had a child in my family die once, and it hit me sadder than any of the old people in my family who've died. People in my family live a long time, so that's good. I hope to live a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, when I'm 80 years old, I hope to get pimples. I very slow living. Movies have certain. Has any movies ever made you sad or made you cry, or TV shows?
Steel Magnolia.
Steel Magnolias. Yes.
And,
Yes. Very sad. And what's sad about it is, I think Julia Roberts is a big star now, but I think she was the least big star. No one ever heard of her when she, with Dolly and Shirley MacLaine and all those other actors in there, and she at Sally Fields, and it hit home because at least if it was Dolly or Sally Fields, you'd say, oh, I know she's fine, but Julia Roberts was kind of, oh, I never saw Julia. Now if you saw it, you'd say, oh, that's Julia Roberts.
Yeah.
What else?
What else? My Girl.
Oh, My Girl with Macaulay Culkin
Yeah, the
getting stung
first
by the
one.
bees. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very sad. Yeah.
I haven't really cried in that, but it is sad. I
Yeah.
felt like I wanted to. So.
There was a movie when I was a teenager that every girl seemed to love, and it had Ricky Schroeder. It was called The Champ. And I think that is the saddest movie ever. It has John Voight as his father, and it has a very sad ending. And I didn't really care for the movie very much. even as a 18-year-old. So I'm watching this movie in a theater, kind of a crowded theater. I mean, a lot of people are in the theater, and there's music, and there's sadness, and someone is about to die in it at the end of the movie. I don't want to give out too much. And then the music stopped, and all I heard behind me, because I usually sit in the front, was this wave of ah! Like I turned around. I said, "Gosh, everyone is crying in this movie." I didn't care for it too much. But I mean, it hit a chord with people. You know, E.T. A lot of crying in E.T. But then that sort of has a happy ending, so that's not really so bad. He dies and comes back to life, so big deal. but the same year that came out, there was a movie, Star Trek. Well, let me tell you about. The reason why I'm talking about this is because I saw a list on the internet of the 10 saddest films of all time. And to be honest with you, I'd seen about half. And the guy who made this list, I think, hadn't seen a movie older than 5 years. So all he was doing was 5. He didn't. The Champ I mentioned, I didn't.
You're talking about The Search for Spock.
The Search for Spock, he picked as the #1 saddest movie of all time, and it came out the same time. I found E.T. a lot sadder than The Search for Spock. I don't know. Did anyone cry when Spock died? Because the second movie, they brought him back to life. Or the movie after that, they brought him back to life. And Spock died, and someone asked me at the time. Somebody asked me at the time. I said something very cruel. I said, what do you think of the 2 sad movies out right now, E.T. and The Search for Spock? And you know what I said?
What?
I said, well, there's a big difference. With E.T., there wasn't a dry eye in the house. But with The Search for Spock, when Spock dies at the end, there wasn't a dry seat in the house. I saw a movie. Actually, I saw it with you. It was a movie about the first man on the moon.
Oh, yes.
Well, First Man, and it had Ryan Gosling in it. And shows you how old I am. I actually remember being awakened and seeing that. I mean, I was awakened like at 11:30 or something. You got to see the man on the moon. I said, "Oh, I got to see that." I was like, I don't know, 10 years old or something. So I go downstairs and we're watching, and it's very a black and white set, all kind of fuzzy and everything. But the man was walking on the moon, you know. And then this movie was made with a narrative, with actors and sets and everything, and they showed how it, and they showed it from the astronauts' point of view, which I had never seen. I only saw, what the people at home saw, and it just moved me so much. I was so moved by it. And I realized at the end of it that it was the greatest achievement of mankind, and I was there to see it. I mean, there to see it originally, So it was great to see a reenactment of it with Ryan Gosling. I think Corey Stoll played Buzz Aldrin, who's still around. And and the movie was very good. It's by Damien Chazelle, who made La La Land and Babylon, Whiplash, a lot of good movies. Yes.
I remember sitting next to you that night.
Yes.
And then I saw a tear coming out.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't believe it. That's only happened in one other movie, and neither one of these movies are sad movies. My favorite movie of all time is Fitzcarraldo. It's by Werner Herzog, and I really love this movie, and it has a very good ending. You probably know it as the movie where they move a ship up a mountain, and then I'm watching this movie, and just watching it, I'm just, wow, they go through a lot to make this movie, and then that's this wonderful ending, really good ending, and I started crying. I couldn't believe it. It was such a beautiful ending for this movie. So then I get it on videotape, I get it on DVD. I just love this movie, and every few years I watch it again, thinking that it'll that will happen again. And guess what? It does happen again. And the First Man I saw a few years later on TV, and it was moving, but it wasn't moving like that. But Fitzcarraldo was truly moving. Now, this kind of tells you a really awful joke that was played on me, and it was probably you know what a practical joke is. This was the worst ever, and I never told anyone this, but there was a lot of snowing going on. Snow. It was a blizzard, and my friends all got together at one of the hotels in town, and they were walking as I live far away from this place, so I couldn't go through the snowstorm to it, but they all went, and it was at a fancy hotel in Richmond, and I think the Charlottesville Film Festival was going on, and Werner Herzog was at the Charlottesville, who directed Fitzcarraldo. You probably know Werner Herzog. He's sort of an actor too. He has that German accent, and he talks like he talks in a grizzly man. And you know his voice. He speaks English with an accent that it's kind of impressive, and he's an impressive director. So anyway, some of my friends got together and they said that they met Werner Herzog the night I could not go to the thing, and because he was in town, but they later told me they made it up. They just wanted to play a joke on me. I'm not kidding you. It wasn't a joke. For those few days, I felt very dark. I said, I can't believe I missed that. I can't believe I could have had a discussion with him, could have met him, could have. And that was probably one of the lowest feelings I've ever had in my life. Practical joke's supposed to be funny. So that's what happened. So So I still haven't met him. I've met so many people. I've met Steven Spielberg. I've met John Waters. I've met a lot of directors. I've been Ronnie Howard. I've made a movie with Tom Hooper. I even met Chong of Cheech and Chong, who directs movies. Never met Werner. I've never met too many foreign directors, if any. Okay. That I felt like crying. I remember my mom once got a haircut once, and this is kind of cruel, what I'm going to tell you. She got a haircut she didn't like, and then late that night, I saw her crying, and for some reason I didn't feel sorry for her. And I'll tell you why.
Why?
Because I was constantly getting these crew cuts that I did not like, that I didn't even want to leave the house. Flat tops. I look like a California serial killer. There are only two types of people with those haircuts: little kids and
Imagine you shaved your head.
Yeah. One haircut I got was really the worst haircut I ever got. They actually said it was like $3 at I went to a new barber, and he didn't cut your hair like that. See, the way I get my haircut is just normal. It's the same haircut all the time, just shorter.
Yeah.
Well, they said regular crew cuts. I don't know. I always thought it was weird. Crew cuts and flat tops were cheaper than regular haircuts because they had to work a little. So it was like a $3 for a regular haircut, $2 for a crew cut. This is a long time ago, obviously. And then what happened was this barber just shaved my whole head like a punk rocker.
Wow.
Except for a little stubby part. I said, this is the worst haircut I've ever got. Is my hair ever going to grow back?
Like a mohawk.
It was like a mohawk. It was exactly like a mohawk. Only it didn't have a back part. It was a mohawk, at least, is a back part. So I thought that was the worst. And so when people who made me get these haircuts started crying about the haircuts, I see it's not so much fun on your side. I don't think I demonstrably said that, but I thought to myself, who was my mom to cry about a haircut? And her hair grew back. It was fine,
Yeah.
I heard that the difference between a good haircut and a bad haircut is 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Give it 2 weeks, it'll probably come into its own. They say if you're going to have a big event like a wedding or something, always get your hair cut 2 weeks ahead of time. Don't do it the day before, because if you do it the day before, you just, oh God, there's nothing you can work with. It hasn't grown back yet.
Yeah.
to work with. And so what else have people cried about? I've heard people cry. Let me tell you something. I've had people cry that, oh, this is awful. Once they came to my house and I wouldn't turn the air conditioning on,
Yeah.
and they cried.
What? That's a stupid thing to cry over about.
Well, you see, that's just it. Maybe they could, maybe, you know, I always feel air conditioning is for old ladies.
Yeah.
But I think she was an old lady now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Old ladies and privileged teenagers.
Yeah.
Like when I drive my car, I don't need air conditioning.
Yeah.
There's nothing that makes me cry. I'm
Yeah.
always a happy, I'm always in a good mood. And I'll tell you why. Because you live life on your own terms, and you make all the decisions in your life, and you don't
Right.
have anyone to you know. That's why you feel like crying when your boss or your parents yell at you, or your girlfriend or
Yeah.
husband yells at you, because you feel powerless. What am I going to do? I thought things were going to work out.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm all cried out.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna take a little break for a few minutes,
Yes,
and thank you all for tuning in. We're coming back. God
right
bless
on.
you. God bless.
Thank you.